Welcome to the Priority Lane podcast. The Priority Lane is a podcast where we discover how to work smarter, not harder. I'm your host today, Lawrence Dauncey, and I'm delighted to have a very special guest on today, a serial entrepreneur, CEO and founder of his own business, based out of New York at the moment in the USA. So this is great. It's nice to have some of our cross-Atlantic partners on board. So I'm delighted to welcome Konar to the Priority Lane. Oz, great to see you.
Great to be here, Lawrence. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me. It's we've had a couple of chats over the last couple of weeks. I just wanted the listeners to check this out. So when we mention or we use the word entrepreneur, I mean, I think lots of people have different ideas of what that means. But when we spoke, you told me a very interesting story that at the age of 7, you ended up selling water in the market to market traders. Now, at 7 years old, that's what an incredible feat, or just an action to do. Tell me, how on earth what drove you to just do that at the age of 7? Because that's really quite something.
Yeah, so I grew up without a father figure early on. So you go to the market, and most of the sellers are, fathers and males and things like that. It is scorching hot that day. I'm hanging on to my mom's hand basically at the time, and they're selling tomatoes, fruits, and all that stuff, right? And they don't have any coverage over them. Everyone is sweating bullets, and I'm watching these guys. I'm like, I just feel bad, and it was only like 11 a.m., right? They have to do this until like 6 p.m. And unlike now, there's no like bottled water or anything like that. No one knows the importance of like drinking water regularly. And I told my mom, can I just help these guys? Like our house was across the street from it. Like, can I grab a pitcher and a glass and bring back and serve them water? So it wasn't like an entrepreneurial strategic planning that took place. It was just me looking at the guys and feeling kind of bad for them that they have to work and under that weather. So mom said, sure, go ahead and do that. So I remember going back and grabbing the pitcher. I was so happy. And glass, so much to say about hygiene. Everyone's drinking from the same glass, obviously, but that's just how it was, right? And I came back and I started offering to people, and I did not notice that they thought I was selling water. I was just serving them water. After the second cup, people start giving me coins. I'm like, what is that for? Oh, thanks for the water. This was really, really good. And after 3-4 people, one pitcher is gone. Now I'm motivated. Now the entrepreneurial brain kicked in. I'm like, wait a second. There's money here. I remember doing that trip back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And at that moment, it didn't really mean anything, Lawrence. It was like, oh, this is cool. But I think it planted that seed that if you solve a obvious problem for the market rewards you, right? I wasn't asking for money or anything like that. Then it kind of helped me later on in life. But that's how it started out, quite accidentally.
Well, I mean, it is an incredible story, and clearly I understand that perhaps at 7, it may be too young, that, obviously you didn't have a market plan or a business plan in your head to sell water at the time. But for me, that suggests that there had to have been a seed or some sort of entrepreneurial DNA in you to do that. But what's most interesting, and as I said, I bore everybody, and I have done for the last 30 years, about the human element. Your answer there is basically, you were concerned for your fellow, way too hot water. It makes sense. So that, again, to the fact that you've clearly combined those two, I think is absolutely awesome. So yeah, that's a cracking story.
Thanks.
So no, not at all. So after you've sold this water, how have you now become, and what has led you to be where you currently are? Clearly, well established. You've got great number of followers. You founded your own business. Tell me about that actual process, that story.
Yeah, that experience kind of stopped there and nothing else happened for a long time, right? And I didn't know that I would end up in the US one day because my father left early, exactly when I was like 6 turning 7, to come to United States to provide a better future for us, right? That decision separated us for 11 straight years. So the next time I saw him, I was turning 17 almost. And then that's when, we came to United States, and I was hoping that I'm going to get off the plane and we're going to start living the American dream. And that's not what happened. We found out that well, not we knew that he had a business, but we found out that his business was not doing great at all. So 2 months into our arrival, me and my sister and mom, he had to file for bankruptcy, right? Shocks to us. Now we're not even starting from zero; we're starting from negative. So we all started to scramble, get a job to pay off the debt and all that, right? So they came with a shock and also a realization that I did not know anything about money or credit or financing. I didn't even know why my father's business failed, right? It was like a rude awakening call, but I didn't also think that I had the power to do anything about it. So people told me you got to go to college. So just like most people, I went to college, did double major in biology and chemistry. I was getting ready to go to medical school, and then it dawned on me that what does it take to go to medical school? And I was talking. I remember on my fourth year in college, I was having a conversation with my guidance counselor. I said, "What is next?" She's like, "Well, you're going to go to another 4 or 5 years of schooling and things like that." I'm like, "All right, is that paid for?" She's like, "No, you're going to pay that, and most likely you're going to graduate with a debt of probably 250K." I said, "Whoa, time out. I don't have that. I can't get in more debt. Like this is horrible. Like I'm barely 20." And I said, "All right, I'm not going to do that. What do I do?" And that's when I started going into full research mode on how to make money, basically, right? So it wasn't the goal initially was not grand to serve humanity or anything like that. It was survival. And then based on my research and the courses that I bought, oh, you got to learn how to sell. Okay. Then that's the 7-year-old kicked in. So I started looking for a sales job. And then I was selling basically from anything from credit card processing to payroll and climbing the corporate ladder. And it was going well until I noticed that another breaking point on what am I doing with my life? Like what's gonna happen? Because at the time, your audience might not know, but I used to live in Pennsylvania and I was commuting to New York City, which is a 2.5 hour one-way commute daily. And at this time, I'm married and my wife is pregnant the first kid, and I do not see them. Like I wake up at 5 a.m. By the time I come back home with the traffic, it's like 9 p.m., right? We're doing the cycle. I look at this, I'm like, all right, if I continue on this path, maybe I'll make more money, but I'm pretty certain that I'm not going to have a wife because I don't see her, right?
Mhm.
That's when I started networking with other people. Now I'm learning network and like the next phase, right? And I come across a guy who does sell business loans basically. And that was an industry that I didn't know existed. And through our referral relationship, I made my first big money for me, $4,000 check from a referral. I just referred him someone, didn't even talk to the guy and got money. And I remember I still have that picture. I brought that check back to my wife and had her take a picture of that and say, now things are changing, right? Because I finally kind of found a way to make like real money. And obviously, I just went all in on that one. That was a journey of me becoming a business loan broker, and everything was going great. Then, as I started networking, people started asking me to give talks about business funding because it's such a niche area that no one talks about. They don't teach you in school. Every business, like
Mhm.
everyone wants to be a business owner, but they don't understand the finances part of that, right?
Mhm.
So I had people who wanted funding, but a lot more people wanted to learn about how this industry works, right? Which slowly pushed me into the coaching arena, which brought us here. Fast forward like 8 years. So we created the largest coaching company in the alternative lending industry. We have 7,000 brokers, and basically I've been teaching them what I did to become successful. And also we created the back end of the funding network with the lenders. So it's like a two-tier position. So all the things that I've learned since seven and the financial troubles and things like that kind of prepare me for today and hopefully be good enough to help other people who want to do the same thing for their lives.
Well, listen, I mean, I would agree with that. I mean, I think one resounding thing I have in my head for where you're concerned there is certainly you clearly, I think, as any entrepreneur does, you exhibit a level of resilience that I think is required. Resilience and, of course, focus. A single focal point. That this is where I need to be.
Yes.
How do I get there? How do I go about that? And you mentioned that you paid for courses and stuff. So at what point did you go, I need a plan? Did you come up with a plan or did you just do it sort of, off the cuff? How did it work for you?
Well, I started reading a lot of books. I learned how to speed read and things like that. And I noticed like a lot of self development books, right? And I kept seeing this pattern that if you want to get ahead, you got to take advantage of what other people know instead of trial and error, right? So our lifespan is very limited in the grander scheme of things, like 70 to 80 years. I said
Yeah.
someone who's an immigrant who doesn't know anything about finances but want to get ahead in life, it can't be just sheer willpower or like hustle. So there are people who figure this out, and I'm in the center of it, which is New York City, right? The center of money. I'm like, how do
Yeah.
I learn this? Obviously, I don't know anything about this, and that's when I was networking, I got a little bit more strategic. I said, who do I learn this from? Like how to do public speaking or like how to sell better or how to provide coaching and things like that. I just whatever I earned. I remember my first investment. It was into a $12,000 coaching program, which I didn't have. So I remember coming out of the sales call with the coaching program, looking at my wife. My wife was like, "What did you do?" I said, "Well, we got to sign up to this, but we don't have the money. I'm going to put it on the credit card." And we did it a monthly payment. She's an awesome woman. She said, "All right, if you think this is going to help us, let's go for it." Right. And as you can imagine, I was sweating bullets because that's just the like you're trusting in someone that could help. And that started my journey of, oh, this is the easier path. Like you can still invest and learn. I think that put me ahead of like my probably version of myself that wouldn't have invested way faster within 12 months. A lot has changed. So I had clarity. I had the opportunity to get to know myself. I think one of the problems with entrepreneurs, they are passionate about what they do, but they do not understand who they are in their core and what they might be lacking, because hustle is good, but hustle cannot be a long-term strategy, right? You need a
No,
real
no.
strategy, right? Otherwise
Yeah.
you burn
Yeah.
out. That can't
Yeah.
be your core of, I'm going to hustle, I'm going to dial 600 people. Initially, that's
Yeah.
fine. But then what are we
Yeah.
doing to become actual business owners? And I think I still have that habit. Like every year, just go to conferences, learn from other people, because it is such a shortcut.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Which is, what the priority lane is all about, is working smarter, not harder. And of
Hmm.
course, we've all started, jobs and roles, whether it be telemarketing, telesales, whatever, when we were younger, smashing out hundreds of calls a day, and not really caring. It's just, using all that energy or youthful energy we had. So, you know, I totally agree with you. Having that plan, I think, is, or at least recognizing, having the awareness that you need to do something other
Hmm.
than, the hustle is really important. And you mentioned, I mean, what I'm finding, I just wanted to ask, have there been any specific mentors that you've gone that have helped you and really given you that knowledge, or, that next sort of springboard to move forward? Are there any mentors like that?
Oh yeah. Well, when you're getting going through coaching, I think it's a process to find out what kind of coach you need based on your personality, right? I noticed that I didn't really do well with people who just wanted to make me happy and keep me in the positive moment and give me a pat in the back. I did really, really well with people who kind of called me out on my BS, right? Because
Challenged you?
yeah, challenge me. Like, you have a strong personality. I have a strong personality. If I had a coach who didn't really just tell me like how it is, I ended up walking all over them, and it turned into a session of them trying to please me and things like that. Then
Hmm.
finally found someone much younger than me, someone named Sam Ovens, who is currently the owner of school.com, multi-billion-dollar company. And this guy is like fresh out of New Zealand, came to the United States running a marketing agency. And on our first call, like I liked the way how he spoke to me. Like he was doing like he had a mastermind for only 100 people, right? And I'm trying to get in there. And he wasn't trying to sell it to me. He's like, dude, what's the problem? I'm like, well, this is the problem. Why are you not solving the problem? I'm like, I am trying. It's like, okay, what is working? Well, this is working. Why don't you do that 10 times more then? I'm like, I guess I could do that. Like I was running out of words. The way he was, it was just so dry. I'm like, I
Yeah.
actually do like this. And then I got my coaching for him for I think 5 years in a row. The coaching sessions actually worked out that way. You show up with your problems. He tells you, okay, why is this a problem now? Very philosophical, right? Questions after
Yeah.
questions until you kind of find the answer on your own, which is to be the best coach, right? Instead of telling you, go
Of
do
course.
this, versus, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a reason why you didn't do this. You're smart enough. What stopped you?
Yeah.
So that's what it took me from being like making a $10,000 per month company to millions of dollars because of him. And where he is right now is a testament to that strategy. Like he stopped coaching, built a software, and got investors and things like that, and killing right now. Yeah.
That's no, well, that's great because it's true. I think through everybody's business career or business life, you always come across people that, give you some influence and they leave a little bit of their, expertise with you that you can use. And of course, there's some that, as you just mentioned, that don't work, for you. But I love Sam's approach where it's basically he's putting the question back to you. So you figure it out. So my follow-up question to that to you is, do you operate a similar framework when you're coaching?
Absolutely. Same process. Someone comes up to me with a problem. Hey, Oz, for example, I'm trying LinkedIn and LinkedIn doesn't work. Like, think about that statement. A massive social media, like the largest professional social network, does not
Mm,
work for lead generation, right? That obviously that's not a true statement. I'm like, okay, what makes you think that it doesn't work? What have you done so far? And let me see the activity. And you notice
mm,
that they logged in like 3 times and they try to connect with like 3 people. Well, it's a volume issue, right? And someone has the volume under control, then it's the messaging issue. So when you get to the core of the problem, solving the problem becomes a lot better, a lot easier versus
mm,
saying, "Oh, LinkedIn didn't work. Did you try Facebook? How about TikTok?" Like you're not talking about the problem. You're just trying to validate your students' concern by saying, "Oh, my coach told me LinkedIn doesn't work. I'm just going to go TikTok," versus helping them realize that no, you just haven't done enough repetitions.
no,
So I just follow the same process with my team. If there's a problem, I'm like, you can't just tell me what the problem is. You have to tell me, why do you think it's happening? What have you done about it? And what is your question? Like, if you see my Slack messages, someone makes a statement. I'm like, what is the question? You're just making a statement. So let's find out what the question is so I can help you. If you're not clear on what the problem is, are you just asking for a conversation, or are you asking for help? So if you don't know, that's
mm,
okay, but you need to be clear on what you're asking for.
no, it's cool. So the guys, or we call them, should we call them, I don't know, they students? Do we call them that?
You can
Your
call students, the
Yeah.
mentees, or like members. Yeah.
So your students, your members, what percentage of your students, members adhere and enjoy and like that framework that you've adopted after your, adopting Sam's method? Would you say most of them like that challenging approach that you present?
No, that's why I use that on we have a higher tier for people to work one-on-one with me. We have other coaches in the company. Their approach is customized to the personalities. But if someone wants
Okay.
to work one-on-one with me, I do my qualification call and I make them aware that this is my process and it's okay if
Okay.
it's not going to go well with you, but
Yeah.
you're asking for accountability and I will hold you accountable. And if you have any problem with that, I think you should stay with other coaches, like, and we have them take personality tests, because as you can imagine, that will not sit well with, I would say, most people. But
No, of
someone
course.
who's a high achiever and they have serious goals, if someone comes up to me saying, I'm making 5K a month, I want to jump into 50K a month, that requires a lot of work, right? And it's not
Mhm.
the work just coming from my part. We have to work together. And
Of
I
course.
need to be able to tell you like it is.
Okay.
And most people are not okay with that. They're taking baby steps, and we have other coaches for that. But to answer your question, no, most wouldn't be okay. But those who are, I think those are the ones who take it to the heart, and that's when we accomplish massive jumps in their personal life or business lives. Yeah.
No, okay. That's yeah, yeah, for me, it was important to, kind of drill down on the adaptability of,
Hmm.
obviously of your business, and obviously you being in the lead role as a key person. You have clearly, you have great success, and as you said, perhaps, your method is suited to a specific tranche of people, whereas, as you said, some others might not, be susceptible to it and it
100%.
might not work. So,
Yes.
which is, again, it shows a great awareness, which also for me has to be an entrepreneurial trait. It has to be a skill to be aware that, perhaps your method might not work for that person, but you will find someone that it will work for. So,
Yes.
yeah, because otherwise it would just be you. So,
Yeah, because you can't grow that much, because most people are not used to thinking that way, or they're not used to being pushed to operate that way. It's only, from my experience, people who truly either desire to be a high achiever or they already are and they actually want to know how to fix the situation. Others
okay.
want to understand what to do first, and then they do it a little bit, right? The warm up is a little longer, and we
Sure.
understand that there are personality types. My background is in sciences, so then I know that that approach would turn off many people, but that's why I only work with a very small percentage of our entire community one on one, and we do an
Okay.
initial call to find out if this is going to work out. If it doesn't, I'm like, great, we have amazing coaches,
Mm.
but I want to make sure that what you want to do matches the action that we're going to have to take in the given amount of
Sure.
time.
You're right. No, I understand. I understand. I mean, that also leads me on to the next sort of point that I have in my head. Now, obviously, as you know better than me, that the US, England, most countries now are multicultural. Okay.
Hmm.
So your members, whilst of course they're US citizens, etc., they come from many different cultures.
Sure.
Do you find, which means, and I've lived and worked in France for 10 years, and if you think there's only 20 miles at the narrowest point between, the south of England and the nearest point of France, okay, that's not a big distance, but the mentality and culture is poles apart.
Yeah.
And I remember, as I said, I remember that it was very difficult to integrate into that sort of culture and that mentality because it is so completely different. So my question to you is, how have you managed, that culture nuance that clearly you must have with your members?
Yeah, I think the fortunate part for me is US is a very entrepreneurial country. Like I was, as I was telling you when we got together, I came out of a 2.5 hour live meeting last night, talking to over 200 people about this business opportunity. It was a webinar, right? One thing that surprised everyone is every day in the US, about 1,000 new businesses start. Like there's the formation of a new business. As you can imagine, there is no other country that could have that number of volume, right? So I think that culturally, regardless of where people come from, they're almost conditioned to believe that you got to have your own business type of thing.
Okay.
And that belief
Okay.
is
That's
getting
interesting. Yeah.
strengthened, I think, every single day. Now, if you look at the job creation numbers and things like that. So Americans or people who live in America have a way of flipping into business owner mode when there's job security is in danger. We've noticed that through the pandemic too, right? Pandemic, we've seen
Sure.
3x more traffic to our entire funnel because people got furloughed or they got let go. Instead of saying, well, maybe this is the end of it for me, or let me go look another job, they said, I always had this great idea. Let me just look into what I can do. And they go into that research mode. So, which is, I believe, very different in European countries, depending on the country that you're in, right? So that helps a lot for me to start with that belief that I need to have my own business and help them see, I guess, if this vehicle is a better vehicle, then all the other differences, like I think there's a universal understanding that when you're starting a startup, you're going to be hustling a little bit. You're usually starting with little to no money. It's going to take some
Yep.
time, but I
Yep.
need to evaluate my options better. I think that helps me a lot to connect because in our community, we have people who are like 20 years old, all the way up to like 80 years old, right? So it
Mm.
puzzles me too. Like, how do we gather them under the same umbrella, have them coming
Sure.
from all different backgrounds? I think it's
Of course.
that belief that they believe in progress. Like the things
Okay.
are going to get better if I do certain things. And as long as we keep that belief alive, that just helps us just become a melting pot of all these cultures and they believe in kind of one mission, basically. I don't know if that
No,
answers your question.
yeah, it does. Absolutely, because you mentioned that it isn't just I didn't touch on it, but you did. The age demographic. Your members range from that to that. I mean, it's and you can't. I know from certainly from a European perspective or my own perspective that a 20-year-old here in England does not have the same work ethic or mentality or understanding of what's required as I do. So
Hmm.
when I was 20, it was, I came from a family where both my parents worked and they worked hard full time.
Yeah.
And nothing was for free. If I wanted some pocket money, I had to mow the lawns. I had to, do the laundry. I had to help, you had to do a job.
Yeah.
And I've done exactly the same with my children also, so I've got, my youngest is 10, and whenever she FaceTimes me, we message free. She doesn't live with me. She's with her mum. But,
Yeah.
we message all the time, every day. But when she FaceTimes me, my first question to her is, hi, baby, how much do you want? Because she only phones when she wants £2.50 or something. But I don't give it to her, Oz. unless I said, well, no, you can't have that. Is it your birthday? Is it Christmas? No. So what she goes, but Daddy, that's just mean. I went, it isn't. I said, I'll give you £2.50. Show me your wardrobe. Let me see.
Yeah,
Clean your wardrobe, whatever it is, right? So I came from a background of, if you want to, earn some pennies, you need to put some work in. So
absolutely.
that's my era. Okay. I'm just finding that, that certainly now, teenagers, late teenage teens, people in their 20s, they don't have that same work ethic, which I
Hmm.
don't understand because their parents will be my age and would have had a similar upbringing,
Very,
I
very
would
true.
expect.
Yeah, yeah.
So, so what I was asking really was, the fact that you mentioned you've got 20 to 18, I mean, that must be, how do you, I was going to say, how do you manage the change in mentality between those age groups? Because that's a massive demographic.
It's a hassle. Most of our community is over age 40, but we do have people, younger people too. What we notice is that as like most successful companies out there, we try to innovate all the time. But when I look at the younger generation, either in England or in the United States, what happened in the journey of humanity is this is the first time that within the past 50 years, 1,000 years worth of change happened, right? So cell phones came along, social media and things like that. And
Yes.
teenagers, younger people for the first time got exposed to what other cultures are doing, what other countries are doing, how the rich lives, what an influencer is and things like that. So you and I basically had no reach to celebrities. You would only see them on movies. Now they can follow them on social media and see what they wear and where they go, how they live, and things like that. I think it creates that feeling of, well, I want to be like that without understanding what it takes because you're trying to model after 0.1% of the population who might or might not be living actually like that. And I think that kind of ruined the perception of hard work for a lot of younger people. So when we onboard
Right.
younger people, a lot of them want to focus on the technological tools that we have to make their job easier. When I
Of
onboard
course.
someone like you want to know what it takes to win, right? So you're like, I did hard work all my life. What do I need to do? I'm putting the time
Mhm.
already as is. I want to transfer it to a better vehicle. We noticed even the quality of the questions change, right? The young people
Yeah, of
say,
course.
what tools do you have for lead generation? How many buttons do I click to get leads? And how do I speed it up type of thing,
Yeah.
right?
How far do I have to scroll down? Yeah. I mean, okay. It's a
So you
very
can
good
see
point.
the change in mentality like from generations. And I was thinking about this. I think it coincides with the rapid development of extreme rapid development of technology, right? I think if you're going to accommodate to different generations, you need to have different strategies a little bit while keeping the core the same, knowing that that type of audience, when they come onto our sales calls, they look for certain things, certain technological advancements and apps and things like that. We do have
Sure.
them. So, and they lean on that versus other people. They want to understand the business philosophy and what it takes to succeed and what their day to day should look like to get to that next level. And it just becomes a business decision. Do you just want to cater to people who are like that, or you want to open your doors? But when you do open your doors, you cannot offer them that make the same offer to the younger people because their thinking has changed so much on how business works. You know,
Sure.
you just need to have the better tools for them to act faster because they have the brain capacity and then that like you said the youth energy they can deploy it into it but they have to believe that it is integrated what they do every day their phones social media and things like
Sure.
that.
Yeah, sure. One thought popped in my head from a sales perspective. It just occurred to me that obviously hearing your insight into that, and you're absolutely right, that their focus is on the sort of technological
Hmm.
advancements, the tools that can help them get there quicker, almost shortcutting effectively. And that made me think, how would I sell effectively, the consulting that we do at Devera Capital and the Blackbridge Group and my brokers. How I was just made me think, how would I sell to that age group? And I'm not entirely sure I would know how because their mentality, their perception of what they need is not something that I'm actually in tune with. So, how do you feel? Do you think that's the case? Because obviously, the majority of the people that I'm speaking with are a similar age to myself. or at least been in business for 20 years, let's say.
Hmm. Yeah, I think sales model changes. For example, people your age, my age, and above, they actually want to speak to someone to find out more about what you do and things like that. And they say things
Okay.
like, "Oh, business is done belly to belly. You show up and you talk to people, build a connection." Whereas someone who's 20 years old, they just want to see a demo of what it is. They don't want to talk to anyone. And they're
Okay.
very smart. They understand what if it is presented properly, they understand what the tool does or the business does, and they make decisions based on that. I think that's the
Okay.
difference. So if you have a call, it comes down to like what kind of funnel you have. If you have a cold funnel, I think you're going to automatically attract an older generation because they get that that's how business is done. When it comes to younger generation, they just need to see first before they decide if they want to invest time into it, right? So like
Yeah.
having a pre-recorded demo of what the tool or the business does for them to view. Because when we look at the age demographics of who watches the videos that we have, like the walkthroughs, because we
Mhm.
can see some of the metrics and all that stuff, it is always the younger people that consume those videos more versus the other people are like, I like this, but I just need to talk to someone to find out if this is real or not.
Okay. Okay. Now that's, I mean, it's again, it's that I just find this fascinating from the human element perspective, as we've mentioned before. But in your opinion, in your professional opinion, moving forward, how can you gauge or balance the importance of belly to belly, where you are actually speaking to someone that you want to partner with, compared to just being given something via, an app notification? I mean, how can you influence, let's say, the younger generation to say that actually our way, belly to belly, will get you better results because you will build trust and you build a connection? Is that possible, do you think?
I think it is possible, but this might not sound it might sound great, but it's going to require a different type of indoctrination process. Meaning that you have to get them in through the way that they think it works. Then after they get in, you slowly teach them the principles of business. We have a lot of young people. They get in and they slowly learn that. Yeah, so it takes discipline. It takes human communication. You have to be a great
Okay.
communicator. You can't just send a DM to close a $20,000 deal, right? You need to be able to do that, but I think the starting point is to accommodate to how you want things done, to show them your system. Then once they see the value in it, slowly indoctrinate them into the right way of building long-term business. Does that make sense? Otherwise, fighting against the current is not going to help. Like that already happened. Like that's how they operate.
No, I do. I think you're absolutely right. I actually hadn't thought of that. So there's a there's a learning curve for me straight away, and I love learning something new every day. Absolutely, use what they know to get them in, and then just a little drip feed effect. I think that's, I mean, clearly makes sense. Hence why you do what you do. So that's really really cool. That's great. So your business lending blueprint. So you started this what, back in 2018, I think. Is that right?
Hmm.
Okay. How quick did it take you to kind of see real results?
Well, starting that part of the business became accidental as well because from 2014 to 2018, we were a marketing agency, so helping larger business loan brokers get deals and leads online, right? So since I figured out marketing myself, in my mind, I said I can become a marketing agency. All of these big guys are smiling and dialing. They have these fancy offices, like they have the Wolf of Wall Street mentality. I'm going to show them how to do the marketing different way, generating leads through Facebook and YouTube and things like that. So our agency was taking off, but the one problem that I didn't see would happen is that these brokers, they wouldn't put value to the leads. They would get same amount of leads through paid ads, for example, but they would still prioritize cold calling. So I noticed there was a behavioral change. They just enjoy being the boss and having like 50 people in the office, right? And then you send the leads, and I would show up to their office and notice that, hey, dude, we sent you like 100 leads last week. He's like, yeah, thank you. Yeah, but no one called them. They're like, yeah, we're gonna get to them. We got busy with the list. I'm like, so you're calling on a list that you bought, and 20 other people bought the same damn list, and you're getting your exclusive leads, and you're not calling them, and that started frustrating me. And one day I went on my YouTube and I pulled up a whiteboard literally the video said, "Here's why your broker shop will fail in 1 year," and it was just my frustration coming out, saying that here's what you're doing wrong. Here's where this is going. If you don't do that, that these large leases and the you're paying 50, 60 grand per year, it's going to eat into your profit. Like cost per leads are $2, $3. Anyways, I released that, and next day I woke up, I got a lot of comments from non-broker people saying, I want to learn this business, right? And at the time I had a VA, she was like, boss, they want me coach. Like, I'm like, no, they're not even from the industry. They're not going to understand. This is not going to work, right? And that kept happening and happening. And we just built an email list. And one day I said, screw this. I'm just going to send an email saying, hey guys, I'm just going to run like 7 weeks of Zoom sessions live. We're going to jump on the call. I'm just going to pull the whale and talk about my journey and how this works, right? If I had something like this, would you be open to paying for it? And we got so many yeses, right? And I said, okay, so it's going to be like $897. 30 people bought, like through an email. I'm like, oh my God, we're onto something here. And that was the beginning of Business Lending Blueprints. Again, it was not this grand strategy. It was just me noticing patterns that, yeah, there is a
Yeah,
value in what we do, but the big guys do not want to make that pivot, right? But there are people who are just hungry for an amazing opportunity. They get that. Even though my video was not for them, they said, wait a second. So we make money by selling money. What a concept. That just makes sense. Who do I learn this
yeah,
from? And then we pivoted our marketing. But luckily for us is that we had the back end, like the relationship with the lenders, which is the biggest part of this whole puzzle, right? You can have leads, but who's going to fund them? So when we put it all together, and obviously this didn't happen overnight, through the years, it kept improving and improving and brought us here. But the start of it was not super planned. It was just me just being vocal about how I felt about the industry, and I guess it's resonated with some people.
well, without a doubt. And I just, that touches on, I suppose, another entrepreneurial trait, which is noticing the opportunity, to, yeah, and of course, the big one is timing. That
Mm,
that's that timing is I mean, how do you feel? Do you agree with that? I think timing
absolutely.
is a crucial, crucial part of any entrepreneur actually, becoming a success. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the entrepreneurship is just you just working hard at something over and over and over again. However, you get to a point that you just get lucky because you've been doing it for so long. When that luck strikes, you were there all along and it happened to you, right? So you don't randomly get lucky. It's just I was in the industry already, had no plans of building a massive community. And when I did the message, I think market was ready to receive it and they haven't seen it from anyone else in that raw format. And it just
Right.
clicked like that. And that was the beginning point and it allowed us to build the, community, and then you get to a point that you already have customers, success stories, and things like that. There is an element of luck, but I think it just strikes people who, just like you said, who just go out there and just try to make it work every single day, like the little improvements, and put your head down, stay focused on one area as much as possible. Don't just jump around and do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it takes time to build depth in things, and it's not
Yeah.
overnight.
No, I totally agree. That's certainly an ethos that Nigel, our CEO, who I mentioned, I've worked with Nigel back in '98. I think it was. We've known each
Incredible.
other a long time. Yeah, and we our discussions. I had discussions with Nigel and his sister Naoli, she's just an incredible marketer and ops man. She's just the girl is on fire. And when the three of us have you know discussions about the business and where we're going, the brainstorming, an idea will pop up from one of us. And I think what I find most exciting and encouraging about that is that when we've landed on an opportunity that could be developed or made better, we put that into action. It isn't just a discussion.
Yeah.
And I think, that I was going to say to you, I mean, for me, having discussions fine, but you have to put it into action. Do you agree with that?
I do, and I kind of found it the hard way, honestly. Earlier in my entrepreneurial journey, we would end up having a lot of meetings, and you feel good at the moment because you come up with ideas. You're like, "Yeah, this is good. This is good," and then
Yeah,
you leave the
exactly.
meeting, and nothing would happen. Basically,
Right.
it wasn't until I hired someone who's still our head of marketing, right? Similar to your girl, he's just amazing. But one thing he taught me is that at the end of the meeting, he'd be like, "Yeah, it was a great meeting, but what are the action items?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Interesting. Yeah,
Hmm.
I guess. Yeah, let's talk about it." And that's when I noticed that yeah, I was getting stuff done by just keeping it in my mind. But when you start developing a leadership team, how you operate changes, right? Because they're
Yeah.
expecting like the action items for them to act on. Otherwise, the meetings happen habitual and corporations get into this thing too. They keep having meetings, right? And
Yeah.
then you
Yeah.
become that kind of organization. I totally do agree that you need to have a clear action item or sometimes you can't have it because it requires more meetings. Then you say more discussion is required, right? But when you do that, the action part, like everyone knows exactly what they need to do. And until the next meeting, stuff gets done. Versus, I
Yeah.
thought we talked about this, Lawrence, but yeah, we talked about
Mm.
that too. Well, I wasn't sure
Yeah.
that that's what you meant. Then you get into that, and as the organization grows, as you can imagine, that can become catastrophic because you feel like I'm having meetings but people are
Mhm.
misunderstanding, like, what is going on?
Yeah, it's true. It is true. So no, that's certainly one thing that, Nigel is, he is the entrepreneur, no doubt about it, because this is all these businesses are his brainchild, not mine. I suppose I'm just, he's the bus driver, I'm a passenger, I suppose. But that certainly I suppose I guess Nigel and myself are perhaps the core three. But as I said, our discussions are always, there's always action afterwards. And I just find that, so encouraging because I've worked, with, other businesses obviously in the past that, like you, nothing happened, and having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting is a waste of everybody's time.
Everybody's
And it
time. Oh, yeah.
and it's hugely counterproductive. And, on that note, I think something I heard, I think it was Elon Musk might have said, look, if you don't need to be in a meeting, just don't go. If you have no input, there's no point in being there. Just because you might be part of, let's say, an executive team, if it has no bearing on you and you actually have no input, there's no point you being there.
Mm,
And because you're then wasting your own time and the company's resources.
absolutely.
And I've never forgotten that. And I thought that was, and it's interesting. I doubt very much that many invitees to a company meeting actually look and go, do I actually need to be there? I don't. I bet they don't for fear of reprisal. Okay. And I find that is a shame. So, I think perhaps why the trifecta of Naoli, Nigel, and myself works is because we have open speech. There's nothing's hidden. It's honest discussions. If they think, an idea that I might have or they might have, we will say it. We think that's crap. It's,
Yeah.
we'll, what can we do to make it's all right? But what else can we do? And I think that's really important. How do you work with your team? Do you have a similar methodology in that, or do you have a
Yeah, first of all, kudos to you to have created that trifecta of a safe environment where you can disagree, right? Many companies do not have that. It is seen as CEO has the final say, which is true, obviously. But if you're a true friend or like a true leader, there needs to be time saying that, hey, I think that's not a good idea. And here
yeah,
is why, not just for the sake of disagreeing with it. And
yeah,
I've noticed in corporations that people join meetings just so they don't get fired or they get reprimanded or they want to
correct.
show off with a corporate agenda like, oh, if I just speak more I'm going to be noticed by the boss and I might get a
Mm,
promotion and things like that. I think that's how organizations get more and more toxic every day without noticing because a leader doesn't see the real side of things and he sees a bunch of positive people so happy to join the meeting, but on the
yeah.
back end no one wants to be there and they have no contribution, they just want to show off, right? So we keep our meetings separate, like our leadership meetings. So we have the head of coaching, head of sales, head of marketing, all four of us, and I adapted something I learned from Jeff Bezos, like the memo structure before the meeting, right? So how he manages his CEOs is that if you want to have a meeting with him, you need to write down on a clean memo. I think he calls crisp memo. like on what it is that you're wanting to have the meeting about, why, what have you done about it? And he says by the time an executive puts that together, they cancel the meeting because they find their own answers, right? So we have a similar structure. So before our weekly meetings, we have everyone write down their concerns and things like that. And I did it the wrong way before. Then I ended up walking into a meeting with 30 questions. Then we adapted to what Bezos did. I said, okay, what have you done about this so far? And then the
Yeah.
meeting quality has changed. And also it gave them freedom to sometimes call me out on stuff. Like head of marketing saying, Oz, you mentioned that you're going to create 3 ads. I only got one. I need more ads. Like what's happening with that? But it didn't catch me off guard because it can come off as offensive if someone says it like that. But if it is on the document, walking into the meeting, oh shit, I missed the deadline for the ads. And he's going to bring it up now, right?
But you have to be accountable.
You
There's
have to,
no,
yeah, yeah, exactly. There's no like if we're on the same team and we want to grow, CEOs need to be held accountable too, because a lot of times
absolutely.
the buck stops there. Like if you can't
Yeah.
move the CEO to do stuff, that's going to be tough to scale because
Yeah.
he has the biggest impact with the community, the customers, and things like that. And if he
Right.
gets stagnant, that's slowly how organizations start dying. I truly believe. I don't want to get sidetracked, but that structure, but it took us a while to figure out how to do it properly so people do not feel like, oh, should I say this? Is it okay to say this? But if it is documented, everyone knows and we can freely talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it does, without a doubt, for me, it works because that is human element. Of course, it makes a big difference, certainly for, Nigel and I, because we've known each other for a long time,
Of
and
course.
we're good friends. We we've done, stupid things in our 20s, going to beers and going out late and doing things we shouldn't have done, of course. So, it does make it easier. But, I think also that offers an extra layer of trust there, and
Mm,
I can present an opportunity or a suggestion, and he'll go, Lawrence, you run with it, you do it. It's, he doesn't need to give me a final say. He's happy me to just crack on,
yeah.
and and that for me, being my age, the era I come from, is a massive motivation,
Oh,
a
absolutely.
huge boost, and I will be more productive, with that. So, it's just, I feel very lucky that, we have the team that we do. And I'm sure you do too with your guys.
Yeah.
So,
On that, Lawrence, do you feel like that happens because you guys have invested so much into each other that you've seen yourself at your worst, at your best, and things like that? But on a newer partnership, do you think something like that is possible? Because many people are trying to take on partners and executives and things like that. Partners want to be independent, they want to go do their own thing, but they think that a CEO wants to know everything. But I guess how replicatable is that? Because you have a unique situation with Nigel, obviously, like decades of relationship, and he knows you
yeah.
inside out. But if
Mhm.
someone wanted to apply, is it the hiring, like you hire those type of people, or just it just comes with time?
Clearly, that's come with time. There's no doubt about it. But you you must have met people over your career, Oz, that from the instant you met them, you had a connection and you got on great. And it was easy, and it was like you'd known them for forever anyway.
Hmm.
And I'm just lucky that Nigel happens to be
Yeah.
one of those people. In terms of onboarding new clients, new prospects, new partners, whatever that may be. I'm still of a mind, and we see this, constantly in posts on LinkedIn, which I'm sure you've seen, particularly in, financial advisory industry,
Yeah.
is the word trust. Okay. It's, your investors, they've got high net worth individuals, ultra high net worth individuals, whatever. They've got a lot of money and they want to be able to trust
Yes.
someone with that, right? So you've got to think, unless you've built, you've got those 2-3 decades experience or knowledge of somebody or your advisor, that's difficult to hone. But I do believe that, the start is what we're doing is the belly to belly, is
Hmm.
having, speaking, finding out about that person and having the human element. When I go to networking meetings, I don't introduce myself as Lawrence from Devera Capital. This is what we do. I will say, good Lord, it was about 8 million degrees on the tube coming here. I said, my suit almost melted. So I will use something that is true
Yeah.
from a human perspective, something that is not, it's not work related. And that isn't me. That's not me playing a game. That's not a line. I'm just being honest. I don't want
Yeah.
to talk about work. How can you trust or work with me if you don't know me? And I
Hmm.
am a jovial chap. I have a good sense of humor. Nigel and I, we joke a lot and make fun of each other, or take the piss is how we call it in the UK. And we do that all the, so when I meet someone for the first time, I will, I, I'll, it comes from a human element side. I can't help it. That's just who I am. And I feel that, that has helped me uh, in my career
Oh, that's huge.
before.
So you basically say
Yeah,
personality before titles, right?
I do.
Many people
Absolutely.
lead with their titles. I'm the CEO of
Mm,
this company, Inc. 5000, this award, that award. Yeah, but why do I care, dude? I just met you. Like, good job on you,
cool.
I guess. But you
Right.
haven't connected with me. And
Right.
that doesn't tell
True.
me much.
It does, as I said, for me, it's, one of those, that preliminary question that I ask every guest that I
Hmm.
host on the priority lane, for me is massively important because, to learn that at 7 years old, you wanted to give water to market traders because it was so hot. Okay. That for me that shows a huge amount of empathy, and that makes you relatable. Personally, that makes you relatable to anybody listening. My Women in Business series, where I interviewed the managing directors of uh, a number of IFA networks and businesses over here, prominent, girls I say girls, prominent women in their business. They didn't start as MD, right? So, one of them was, she had a paper round. Okay. Another one she mucked out stables. She didn't get paid, but
Wow.
payment was she was allowed to ride the horses that she tended. Okay. So she got paid by opportunity rather than money, financially. And another one, she loaded supermarket lorries with their supplies, and she had to
Yeah.
wear big, steel toe cap boots and a high vis jacket. And she was a particularly
It's
attractive girl,
incredible.
it's just like, and I said, was it fashion over function or function over fashion? And so, but it's things like that. So that's kind of, that's how I've gone about it. But, the fact is, in each one of them, that, beginning story of any work environment that they started is is relatable. And, which is why, I really, I really push that forward in any work or business or relationship that I try and forge. So yeah, that's how I do it.
No, that totally helps, and it helps with the hiring too, right? So, like, I think many people focus on the resumes. I always try to dig deeper, go as back far as I can to find out if they had wins in life early on, right? So you're hiring someone. Was she on the track team? Was she had to? I don't know. Was the mom is a single mom and she was helping out the mom and things like that? At what age did they start taking on responsibilities? Those things, because don't forget that when you start that early, you're ahead of most people who are just trying to take a crack at it at age 19, right? I think that
Yeah, of
matters
course.
more to me than what you have on the resume. And for certain professions, obviously, resume is important too. But if you, like
Sure.
you said, personality before titles, it just shows that, oh, we have a winner here. Like this girl fights. Like when things get hard, they don't just fold and cave in. They do more. Oh, she ran the track team. She did this and that, and then, oh, she volunteered for this. Well, that shows in the human element and things like that. I think that really, really helps going deeper on the interviews instead of asking canned questions like, oh, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Well, I want to know where they came from, right? Like 10
Yeah.
years ago.
But you see, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, that's a massive. I mean, that's a massive thing to highlight. Odds, frankly, because as you well know, it's the same across the world. I'm sure. Look, specific companies across the world, they need to see the academic credentials
Sure.
first. Okay, I understand that, but
Yeah.
then you look at the hobbies section, which is what hobbies, what do you do outside? It's about that big, and nobody focuses on that. And, and I
Yeah.
think I totally agree with you. It's if you were able to flip that, okay, we can see the credentials, we've seen your certificate of accreditation, whatever it might be, great. Let's put that aside. Now tell me about you. Yeah, I don't see it happily. It doesn't happen, certainly not over here. It doesn't happen, over here very much at all. And I find that shame. So,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, yeah. So maybe we should start a new recruitment business where it's all about, I don't care what you did. Let's tell me about yourself. So, but I mean, one thing I know, just briefly before we come to a close is that, I've had this conversation. I've seen quite a few posts on LinkedIn over the last few months where people in, 50 plus have either been made redundant or, they've lost their job and they are really struggling to get employment. And there's a number of reasons, of course, economic wise, for corporations or companies, they have to pay over here 15% national insurance contributions for each employee. And
Mm,
that it's a significant outlay. The other thing is, of course, they're also thinking, geez, if I hire someone who's 50, I'm going to have to, make sure that salary is, befitting of the experience. Okay. So, and I find that's actually detrimental to, I think, the economy and, the work ethic, because someone of that age group, what I'm trying to say is in the UK for a fact, there's a massive pool of extremely gifted, talented people of that age group, 50 plus, who've still
yeah.
got 15 odd years
Oh,
to
sure.
offer, right? And I also think that they're not specifically, of course, everyone wants a big salary, but generally at that age group, they've kind of generally paid off their mortgage. Yes, they
Mhm.
might have children at university, which is still still going to be a, significant outlay, but their debt is, in my head, going to be way less than, people think. So they
Mhm.
might not need to have that extra zero on or whatever it might be. And I just think companies over here are missing a trick, that there is a massive pool of extremely talented, very productive, let's get stuff done
Yeah.
people in that age, and they've been overlooked. Is it similar? Is it a similar situation? Do you know in the States at all?
Yeah, I noticed that on LinkedIn. Keep seeing posts of people saying, "Hey, I was let go 7 months ago. I applied to 1,000 jobs." Like it's not an
Right.
effort thing. Like I am doing my part. Either
Yeah.
they're ghosting me or they're not interviewing, things like that. And what do I
Yeah.
do? Because
Yeah.
I think this is a newer phenomena, right? Before, if you lose your job, we tell people go get another one, man. Like, look for a job and do that. But I think they're
Yeah.
being treated a little differently, right? So I have friends who are in their 50s who have a job, and the main concern that goes through their mind is that I think that sense of security is starting to disappear from the back of their minds because before, maybe 5 years ago, they were thinking, I have the experience, I'm the top guy, top dog, like I'm going to retire at
Correct.
this company. Now I'm hearing say things like, what if AI replaces my company already just let go 10,000 people, 15,000 people, which is extremely scary, right? And then what I see, I guess, partially working is that instead of leaning on the qualities they already have and the experience they have, I think it might be time to pivot and add new skill sets to be valuable to the marketplace, right? Those are extremely valuable people. I see it in my friends. One friend works for a major bank, right? He's an auditor. So he's like, who fires auditors? Like, you need them all the time, like historically,
Yeah.
right? But the bank just fired like 5,000 of them 2 months ago. And all of a sudden he's like, hold on a second, this is scary now. But what he's been doing since then is adding new skill sets through AI and technology and things like that. And we were talking about this last month. He said, hey, my boss came up to me and said, dude, you're the only one that understands how this AI thing works. Can you start working with me one-on-one to help me understand it too, type of thing, right? So I know that's not fair. Like they already did the work and all that stuff, but market is changing at a speed that we
Of
can't
course.
just sit and say that I bring all of this. Yes, you do, but on the receiving end, they are looking for something different and they are looking for
Mhm.
people who can pivot. So if people might disagree with that, but if the change is happening and we can't control it, I see it on LinkedIn all the time, it might be
Yeah.
time to kind of make a pivot and invest into new skill sets that makes you, I guess, irresistible to keep in the company. Does that make sense?
Of course. It absolutely does. No, I do. I totally agree with it. And I don't agree. An old saying in England, which is you can't teach an old dog new tricks. And I don't agree with that. So,
Total
I think,
BS. Yeah.
yeah,
If
it's
the old
bollocks,
dog
isn't
is
it?
not willing to learn, you can't teach it. But if the old dog wants to learn, you can teach.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. So I totally agree with you. And I think, the other thing I would suggest, if I was to give any personally advice to someone in their 50s who found themselves out of work or something is, you know, reach out to your friends. I think it's, because they're going to know people who know people. Just
Mm,
reach out to as many of the contacts that you've built and, something will drop rather than try and just, keep sending thousands of applications to unknown people.
yes,
Use the network, use the connections that you have, and and see how it goes. And of course, that just for me that highlights what I said earlier about the human element. If you've been a nice guy and you've been forthright and you've been productive and you've got stuff done, you will have a history of that, and people will recognize you for that.
absolutely.
You know, the old saying is, you need to treat people nice on the way up, because if you don't on the way down, it's going to be unpleasant for you. So,
Very true.
so, so yeah. Well, look, listen, my final question to you is going to be some entrepreneurial advice. What advice would you give to anyone looking to start their own business and really just kick off on their own? What piece of advice would you give?
Yeah, it's gonna be short. Take imperfect action. I know it sounds cliche, but there's no best time to take action. There's no better time to talk to a prospect. There's no better time to start a business. You can't. There's no way you're gonna know everything before you take action. You just need to bite the bullet. Whether you're getting coaching or doing this on your own, you don't wait for the perfect moment. You just take action with what you know, because when you take action, something magical happens. Your learning ability grows by probably 10x because you're immersive. You can be reading the same information on a book, retention will be on the floor. But if you take action and learn it while you're doing it, you will retain better. So it's the I guess best. I don't want to say crash course, but best way to get ahead in life is have some information. I'm not saying like brute force, but do not
Mm,
think that, oh, I don't feel I'm ready right now. I just need another 3 months, 4 months. No, things move fast. Like if you have something
sure.
good in you, then people need to see that. Just go out there and just take action. Don't wait for that. That's why I coach our people over and over again. They join the program 6 months, and some of them they're like, I still need to finish that video. I'm like, you don't. No, I'm in that video. I'm telling you that you don't. Like you're watching me, but I'm telling you that you don't. You're ready to go. I think that's the biggest advice that I've learned in my life too. Like just you make up your mind, you just take action, and what you learn along the way is way more valuable than what you learn from just studying the content for months and years. You know.
No, that's brilliant. Well, listen, I think that's words to live by, and I totally concur with you on that. I think that's absolutely right. Do or do not. There is no try. It's
There's
pretty
no,
simple,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, just and there's no, as you said, the timing. There is no right or wrong time. Just do it, because what are you waiting for? It's a bit like, perhaps it's a bit like dumping a girl on Valentine's Day. It's not, you don't choose to. There's, do I wait? Do I not? Just do it. Bad analogy, but there you go. Anyway, listen, Oz, thank you so much. So everybody, I'm Lawrence Dauncey on the Priority Lane. My guest today is Oz Konar. He's been absolutely electric, and I hope you all enjoy our discussion, and we'll catch up. We'll catch up soon. Thanks very
Thanks for
much,
having
Oz.
me, Lawrence. Yeah, my
Okay.
pleasure.
This episode is sponsored by My Brokers app, a white label app built specifically for financial advisors and wealth management professionals. If you want to know how you can have your own app exclusively for your business and your clients up and running by this time next week, visit mybrokers.app or download the free My Brokers demo app from your favorite app store.